الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الخلق سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه والتابعين. أما بعد، رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. Dear respected people, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome back to another episode of An Ayah a Day Shows You the Way. Today, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, we will be exploring the 18th juz of the Quran, more specifically Surah Mu'minun, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم ثم خلقنا النطفة علقة فخلقنا العلقة مضغة فخلقنا المضغة عظاما فكسونا العظام لحما ثم أنشأناه خلقا آخر فتبارك الله أحسن الخالقين ثم إنكم بعد ذلك لميتون ثم إنكم يوم القيامة تبعثون. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in His glorious book, and then we created the drop, i.e. the sperm, into a clot. And then we created the clot into a lump. And then we created the lump into bones. And then we coated the bones with flesh. And then we brought it into another form of existence. We brought it into creation. Glory be and blessed be He, Allah, the best of creators. Then after that, you will all die. And after that, you will all be resurrected. Subhanallah, there's so much to unpack from this ayah, or these ayahs that I've mentioned. There's so much to unpack. There is the process of creation, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from a drop, brings into existence a very complex being. And as narrated in the Quran, khasimun mubin, a argumentative being, a being which has the now ability to be independent, an ability to exercise free will, a creation which can cause so much corruption in the dunya, or a creation which can promise prosperity and goodness and ease and be a source of khair for all of mankind. Where does this complex human being come from? It comes from a drop. And this is like one of the points of the ayah Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning, but it's not the point I want to focus on today. The point I wanted to focus on today was, after Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala goes through this process of creation from one stage to another stage to another stage, and subhanallah, we've all seen documentaries like for hours and hours on end, which explain the science behind this, subhanallah, perfect engineering of Allah Azza wa Jal regarding the creation of insan. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going through these stages. You know, the drop, i.e. the sperm turns into a clot, the clot turns into a lump, and then that lump turns into bones. Those bones now are coated with flesh, and it comes into the existence of a baby, a human, a functioning human with senses, the ability to see, to smell, to think, to touch, to speak, to articulate, to express, to feel. All of these, subhanAllah, complex things Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning in this ayah. So then, after the ayah has been mentioned about all of these stages of creation, what ayah comes next? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, ثُمَّ إِنَّكُمْ بَعْدَ ذَلِكَ لَمَيِّتُونَ, and after that you will all die. Now, somebody who's like reading the Quran, they'll think, okay, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has gone through the beginning of creation, just from when somebody's a baby, a drop is in the stomach of into the womb and then develops into a baby. But then it begs the question, where is life mentioned here? There's no dunya mentioned here. Allah has gone through all of these creation phases, and I said after that you're going to die. Like why? Subhanallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, after mentioning this long, lengthy process of perfect engineering, He's saying after this you will die. What's the meaning? Why did Allah Azza wa Jalla do this? To belittle the meaning of this dunya. to belittle the meaning of this dunya. This dunya is insipid. It doesn't mean anything. It means nothing at all. And then on top of when Allah says, ثُمَّ إِنَّكُمْ بَعْدَ ذَلِكَ لَمَيِّتُونَ, and after that you're going to die, what does Allah Azza wa Jal come with next? ثُمَّ إِنَّكُمْ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ تُبْعَثُونَ, and then you'll be resurrected on Qiyamah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is drawing a very, very clear message here, which is, I have gone through the process of creating man in the most sophisticated way. Why? Not so that he can live on this dunya without no purpose. Not that so he can live on this dunya confused, misguided, making money, making business, making his desires, making his own purpose in life from his own limited self, which started from a drop. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, I've created the man with this, subhanAllah, this many complexities, this much sophistication. Why? Because there'll come a day where he's going to be accounted for what he's done. There'll come a day where he will be asked about everything he done, and that will be the day of Qiyamah. In other words, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is belittling the value of this dunya. It means nothing. So what's the point of reflection here? The point of reflection is in Islam, as you can see from the theme of the surah, is that the Quran in general, not just even limited to the surah by the way, the Quran in general places such heavy focus on the idea of death and Qiyamah. Not to scare people though. Some people get it a bit twisted. It's to scare people, or it's to worry them. It's like when somebody hears about death, it straightens out their spine. Like, it's not for this purpose. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is doing it to educate mankind that you are on this dunya, and the word dunya in Arabic, it comes from the word adna, which means the lowest thing. That's what dunya means. It's a lowly, worldly life. He has placed people on this dunya. Why? Because they will be questioned for their actions. So then, what happens after they're questioned, subhanAllah? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then, when He reinforces the point that this dunya is little, what does He mention a few ayahs before? When He's talking about the mu'minun, He says, أُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْوَارِثُونَ. The believers are inheritors. Those الَّذِينَ يَرِثُونَ الْفِرْدَوْسَ هُمْ فِيهَا خَالِدُونَ. And they are the ones who will inherit Firdaus, where they will abide in forever. Now, like regarding the inheritance, why would Allah Azza wa Jal choose this wording for? Inheritance means that, you've got some possession that was left for you, and now you take it, because that's what inheritance is, right? Subhanallah, the reason why Allah Azza wa Jal used the word inheritance is because our true home was Jannah. And whose home was Jannah? Our father, Adam alayhi salam. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that this dunya is so insignificant. You will be raised on Qiyamah. You will pass away after all these, subhanallah, amazing engineering processes that Allah has mentioned. Why? Because you have something to attain, which is Jannah. And Jannah is something you must inherit. So in very short words, subhanallah, my dear brothers and sisters, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is showing us in the Quran that the dunya is something which the believer shouldn't really get concerned about. People say bad stuff about him, no problem. He may not reach crazy amounts of wealth in his life, no problem. He may not be, subhanallah, someone of status and power and fame, no problem whatsoever. Why though? Why does the Muslim carry this mindset that it doesn't matter? It's because there's only one thing that should concern the believer in his entire course of life, which is, am I pleasing my Creator? The one who created me from a drop, and then into a clot, and then into a lump, then into bones, and now into a functioning being which can think, feel and express his ideas. Am I, as a functioning being, pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And this is why Allah Azza wa Jalla hasn't mentioned here the term dunya in between the creation process and death, because it means absolutely nothing. And this is the way we must view the dunya, that the dunya must be used for its purpose, which is to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in every facet of life that He's obliged upon us. Not just salah, not just Quran, not just being kind to parents, not just charity, everything. Everything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has obliged upon us in this dunya, this is what the dunya is used for. Whereas in the current way of life, it's used so that people can dwell in it forever. Like the Prophet ﷺ said in a hadith, "Ad-dunya sijnul mu'min wa jannatul kafir." The dunya is a prison for the believer. It's not his home, that's what it means. But wa jannatul kafir, it's the paradise of a disbeliever. So I pray all of you found benefit in this message, this short message. All good is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and all bad is from myself and shortcomings. Please forgive me for them. And bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, I'll see you tomorrow for another episode. Until then, barakallahu feekum. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.